Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Evan Evans, film composer, and to my left here is Steven Stratvert, composer.
Hey everybody, I'm excited to be here and looking forward to the Q&A.
And across from me, Dallas Crane.
How's it going? Excited for all these questions.
All right, well, let's talk about scoring.
Yeah. So I actually have a question right off the bat. This is from Aaron Watson. He was asking the group about the difference between diminished and half-diminished chords. So I'll just, this is kind of my thing.
Yeah, great question for you.
I love these kinds of questions. A lot of people do confuse the diminished and half-diminished chords because they're similar. In fact, let's just start out. So the diminished triad is a triad built off of the root, the minor third, and the flatted fifth. Or you can think of it as three notes with two minor third intervals between them. And the half-diminished chord is actually a diminished chord with another note on top. So you can have a diminished chord with three notes, but you can't have a diminished chord with three notes. So at the triadic level, it's only diminished. So the key of C would be C, E flat, and G flat. And now we can have a few different kinds of diminished and half-diminished seventh chords. So we have the diminished seventh chord, which is the root, the flat third, the flat fifth, and the double diminished seventh, which is also the enharmonic equivalent of the sixth. So in C, that would be C, E flat, G flat, and B double flat, or most consider it an A natural. So that's the fully diminished seventh chord. The half-diminished seventh chord actually only has a flatted seventh. So instead of double flatted seventh, it's just flatted. So to build a half-diminished chord, we would have root, flatted third, flatted fifth, and flatted seventh. In C, that would be C, E flat, G flat, and B flat. So the difference right off the bat is that seventh note. The fully diminished triad has the double flatted seventh, and the half-diminished has the flatted seventh triad. We can go a little bit further. With the diminished triad, you can actually add a natural seventh on top of the double flatted seventh as well. This is a common technique used in jazz and film scoring. So you would have a C chord, C, E flat, G flat, A, B natural, which wouldn't work with the half diminished scale because of that flatted seventh would be clashing with the natural seventh. Now scale wise, actually, the diminished chord gives you two options. You get the what I call the tonic diminished scale, and you can also use the dominant diminished scale. And there are two kinds of diminished scales. There are only technically three diminished scales, and then they start repeating enharmonically. And it just depends on which interval you start out first, either the half step or the whole step. So in C, the first, what we would call the tonic diminished scale would be whole step and then half step, and it repeats up. So whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step. So the scale would be C, D, E flat, F, G flat, A natural, B natural, C.
Now, is that the same or any relationship with, is it Hindemith, I think, with the symmetrical scales?
Messiaen had the...
Messiaen.
Yeah, his scales. Yep, so that was one of his modes, was the diminished scale. Yeah, exactly. So they are symmetrical, right? It's the half step, whole step, onwards to infinity.
Right.
So the tonic diminished starts with the whole step, and it's called tonic diminished because you have the leading tone that raised that natural seventh. In this case, would be B natural. And then the dominant diminished starts with the half step, and then whole step, and then half step, whole step. And it functions as a dominant because you have the altered nines and then also the flatted seventh, which would resolve to the third of the, whatever tonic chord you're resolving to. So in that case, it would be C, D flat, E natural, G flat, G, A, B flat, C.
Yes.
So they're the same shape, it's just shifted by a half step, same root. So with the diminished scale, you get both options, but with the half diminished scale, you only get the dominant diminished scale option because you cannot have that leading tone, that B natural. So there's another difference between those two.
Maybe
Functionally,
possibly one sounds more like a natural harmonic minor, and the other one might be more Locrian sounding.
Yeah, the half diminished scale actually functions as the predominant in a minor context. So you could have say for example E half diminished, which would resolve up to A7 flat 9, which would finally resolve to D minor. That's a pretty common jazz minor 251. What's interesting about the diminished triads is because they're symmetrical, they're also quite ambiguous. You can use them to transition between keys. Stravinsky would actually transition between 4 different minor scales because you could shift through that diminished 7th chord and the associated scales.
What's a good example of a work by Stravinsky that someone could take a listen to that on? Petrushka?
Petrushka, yes. There are lots of good moments in the Rite of Spring as well for the diminished scale. Actually, a really good study of the diminished scale is Scheherazade by Rimsky-Korsakov, who was Stravinsky's mentor in a lot of ways. And in this piece, he actually combines diminished scales. He has one in the root and then a different one for the melody. So you get a really cool structure of triads that result from that combination. And that's a little more complex. That's something we have to really draw out to show, but there's a lot you can do, and hopefully that's a good introduction for diminished and half diminished scales. Chords.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. And I wanted to let everyone know that about a synth that I think is a really cool synth that just came out. It's called Monolith by String Audio. And here, let me get that up on the screen. If you guys get a chance to check this out, I think you're really going to love it. I have all of their products, and they do a lot of ambient sound design, soundscape type textures. I really don't think there's anything else quite on the market like it. You can really create your own sounds too with them. There's a lot of controls and buttons to sort of get your hands on in there and tweak and create your own sounds. So if everyone checks out Monolith Bundle, I think you're gonna be quite surprised. Very cool product. Now, as far as synths go, recently I had the chance to check out something called Falcon. I guess it's a new, it's been around for a few years, but boy, did that blow my mind.
Who makes Falcon?
I think it's a company in Europe. I think it was Urcam, the Urcam Studios, from Paris. Mm-hmm. And boy, it was just phenomenal. Couldn't believe it. It sounded so realistic, and it does everything from arpeggiations to modular type synthesis to FM synthesis and that kind of thing. Steven, you had a chance to check it out, yeah?
Yeah. Well, we listened to the demos and stuff.
Yeah.
And they were pretty cool.
Pretty mind blowing.
Really cool. And they're like a laboratory or something. Is that true? Like they have a lab.
They really do. Yeah. They're pretty much the leading institute in the world for technology and music and programming and coming up with new tech. That's IRCAM, yeah. You can go there in Paris.
Are these like sampled instruments, or are they like fully synthesized?
Mostly fully synthesized, but I mean you can use, like I think it does have the ability to do granular synthesis, which takes like a sample and then kind of like randomly goes through it, and it's very cool.
Right.
I love granular synthesis. But
there's one, while we're on the subject, there's one synthesizer.
Yeah, let's talk about synths.
Yeah. There's one synthesizer I don't think a lot of people are aware of that has been really useful. It's a really interesting sound. It's called Posthuman. And I think it was actually made by the two Bryans who worked on Halo Wars 2. So pretty well-known synthesizer composers. And they recorded these samples, and then they have this synthesizer that will rotate between like 4 or 5 different samples, so you get this evolving sound.
Wow.
It works great in chords, octaves, single notes, and it's always interesting. And they designed it to have sounds that blend well with the orchestra. So it's not like a full synthesizer, and it's not a fully orchestral sound. It's this middle ground that kind of blends those two textures together. And it's cheap. I don't know what price it is now, but I would assume at least at most $150. It might be under 100.
Okay.
And super powerful. You get so many, probably like 48 different instruments at least, and I've used a ton of them probably in every project.
I see a bunch of people punching in now saying that it's the UVI makes Falcon.
UVI?
Yeah. I don't know if that's a division of Aircam or how I got that mixed up with Aircam, but Aircam has some incredible stuff too. So check them out. Yeah.
And if
in terms of the learning curve, how would you say the Posthuman is? Is it pretty easy to get into?
Yeah, it's right out of the box. You have great modulation, volume controls, and all that. You basically just hold it down, and you get a sense for the sound.
Mm-hmm.
You can use it up front, like I've used some like kind of fuzzy, airy stuff for like dream sequences, but also just in the background. Really, you can, if you have these really boring wind synths or something, and you have this boring chord, you put the Posthuman right behind it, really quiet, keep it in the background, and suddenly your winds are a little more alive. It blends right in. It's like glue.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it fills in the colors of the harmonic.
Add some overtones, maybe.
Yeah, and it varies. So if you get these really boring patches that don't evolve, you put it behind it, and you get a little more color and use out of them.
Wow, you wouldn't think like to use a synth to give your MIDI more life,
Yeah,
but
it's kind of funny how that one works.
But if so, then I guess that's the one, huh?
Yeah.
Posthuman. But now, do you remember which company makes that, or it's called Posthuman?
Posthuman, I'm not sure what the company is. Does
anybody out there know who makes Posthuman?
Might be Two Bryans, or it might be the company. I'm not sure. I got it when it was pretty early out, so I didn't really pay attention.
Cool.
And then the other find, it's not a synthesizer, but just a patch. It's a Bot Dog Samples. They have this $5, the wooden frog instruments. You scratch them with a wooden stick and they croak.
Yeah.
Really cool percussion for Latin stuff. It's $5.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Awesome find.
And Bot Dog, do they have other little things like that?
They've got one other that's free, one other sample. They're actually a donation. They're like a non-profit sample company, I think, so all the donations go to some charity.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And, they plan on making just these tiny little samples, $5 here and there.
Maybe they can support maybe they can support musicians.
Yes,
hungry musicians.
I don't remember who they're supporting, but definitely if you make a Latin track, feed yourself,
really
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that has to be the number one most important thing there. And I know that Stephen, you use Serum, right?
Right, yeah.
So what's the deal with Serum?
Yeah, man, it took the industry by storm, a couple of years ago, I believe. It's very recent, and in terms of wavetable synthesis, it's top of the line. And a lot of other companies have been trying to emulate them and have come out with similar products in recent years. But yeah, this Serum is just amazing. Just you can drag a wave file into the wavetable and then manipulate it with like granular synthesis, or there's all these options that you could do. So it gives you that really interesting sound. And Dallas, at some point, weren't you using it?
Yeah, I was.
You discovered it.
The wavetable is awesome. It's like this 3D view of the sound, and you're basically scrubbing through the sound to find, the part you want. And the samples they give you, the functions will modify ever so slightly. So you play with some of the the low frequent the LFOs, you can throw those on the wavetable, and suddenly your sound is like super alive and interesting just with these tiny little variations. And then you can mix them together. You have the full effects panel too you can play with.
Oh,
with, like
yeah.
Reverb and EQ and distortion.
Yeah.
And you can get some wild stuff.
And you could also, if you're like a geek like me, kind of, you could even do like
the only one that doesn't wear glasses, by the way.
You could enter like formulas and stuff like that. If you really want to get advanced with it, you have that option as well.
Oh, that's cool.
What can you do with the formulas, for instance?
Well, by using formulas, you have a greater degree of how to shape the waveforms. You could really go to a granular level and say, I want this to transform in a certain way. Maybe.
Oh, wow.
And you can define that specifically, and you can actually go in there and tweak it however you want the wave to transform.
Can you set variables in an equation to, like, modulation knobs?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Really?
You can FM synthesis, for example. You can modulate. You can create a formula where you can modulate. Where you could have what's that? The giver, the carrier, and frequency and all that
carrier,
stuff.
Right,
and where you could go in and figure out what you want to do. You want more FM applied or less of it applied, so you could really. It's really cool.
You've got me really curious.
It's actually, if I remember right, it's rent to own too. So you pay like $8 or $9 a month for a few months until you pay it off, and then it's yours to keep.
Well, that's a good model. I like that.
Yeah, that's a great model for sample libraries.
Yeah,
so it's really inviting, really easy to just jump right in.
Yeah, that's the
way
way
sounds going.
That's the way to go.
And the demo's great too. If you want to check it out, they pretty much give you all the options. So if you like it, you can get it. Yeah.
Yeah, Josh Cook says you can make your own wavetables too. Just draw that stuff in.
Oh yeah, that's another thing where it gives you the ability to draw the waveform, which is really cool.
I've done that. Yeah, you do like a sawtooth, and then you curve around, and then you get maybe like a square.
Yeah.
And then it'll play it for you.
Yeah, that's way beyond what we've ever been able to do with analog synthesis.
Well, it's like it's nice because that's kind of what you're thinking in your head, and then suddenly the interface actually fits with that really well. And so now your concept in your head can go right onto the synthesizers. And then of course you can go in what do they call it, the matrix? It's just a bunch of sliders. So if you really know what you're doing, you just go there and you fast, boom, 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 you connect everything up.
Yeah. Oh.
You can build some stuff really fast. Yeah.
Audio Birdie on Periscope.
Yeah.
Says also Synthmaster. Is a great synth. Yeah, I have that. I love that one because it's just got thousands of presets. Sounds great. It's just if you don't have Synthmaster, you don't have all your bases covered. You got to have at least Synthmaster and then build up from there.
Right.
And then also, Audio Birdie also said that Finishing Move Inc. are the people that make Posthuman.
Oh, that's it. Finishing Move Inc.
Yeah.
Okay.
For Contact, if that's the right one, he says.
Yep, Contact, yep.
And then, Josh Cook was just explaining that, the wavetables it's like a flip book. You duplicate it, and after a bit, and then duplicate it, and after a bit, and over and over and over.
Yeah.
You can create all these, different waves to go...
There's actually a function where you can go through and you modify the waveform, and it'll, kind of change it, and you can do that modification over and over until the sound you started with is completely different from the sound you end up.
It's like a wash and rinse and repeat kind of button.
Yeah.
Regenerate or something.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah.
And if I would say the other synthesizer we want, that you would want, it's a little more expensive. It's Omnisphere 2.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, if you want to work in TV, that is the sound of TV.
Yeah.
Like they beg for that sound on TV. You try and give them anything else, and they say no. We want. This and that. Yeah. They think they're clever, and then
20 years of...
It's Omnisphere, too.
20 years of Omnisphere. It might be even longer now. Yeah. I think probably that came out of Eric Persing's, all the sound design work that he did, and then started to make that into libraries. It was like sample libraries. What was it called? Liquid something, but Liquid Audio, I think. And then Eric Persing's, and then I think he made that Omnisphere with the company that makes Omnisphere, which
That's... Spectrasonics?
Spectrasonics, exactly. Yeah. So that's a cool project.
Yeah.
Now, what about Zebra, right? Isn't that what Hans uses? He's got Dark Zebra. It's like his own custom version of Zebra.
I think that's what they used on Blade Runner 2049. Like, they didn't even want to mess with the original.
The modular?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's at that point, the quality is so high.
Yeah. So cool.
I don't know if you guys knew this, but Dark Zebra was used in Batman.
Yes.
The Dark Knight, so that's why they call it Dark Zebra.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah.
Of course.
Was that the tone that the Joker's theme is really just like one note, but it's like...
Yeah.
No, that was Tina. I think that was Tina Guo.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to have to start calling her Dark Tina then.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But I think, Zebra's mostly modular, from what I remember, and you can plug in and do all this crazy stuff. Yeah.
Really. The modular synth heads must just freaking love it.
Oh yeah. A whole rack on one screen.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, cool. So, and then I've heard of something, Prism Reactor, you were saying, Steve?
Oh, yeah. So Prism's interesting because you can actually manipulate the harmonics of a sound wave. And you get a lot of realistic instruments. They have like bongos and chimes but I think it's like sample modeling, something like that.
Okay.
But they can really model that really well.
Yeah, because there's a difference. There's pitch shifting, and then there's like frequency shifting. You get totally different results from doing one or the other. And that sounds like that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. And it's a hell of a lot of fun to play around with the knobs because you're creating these crazy sounds, and it's. I was up all night.
It's funny. It actually reminds me. We did a demo like a year ago and I used the aleatoric strings from LAS 2.5 actually.
That'd be LA scoring strings.
Yeah, LA scoring strings. Yeah. And we kind of did the frequency modulation thing. Assign all the knobs, and then when you turn it up, it turns into this,
right,
frequency shifted kind of like synthesizer sound. And then you turn the knobs back, and it becomes an orchestra again.
Right. The pulses got so fast, it started to go like.
Yeah, it became its own pitch. And it was cool, because I'm doing like this spider thing.
Yeah.
Watching the movie, turning a million different knobs.
I had to help you, remember? you couldn't have enough hands. That was incredible. That was like using real strings in like a modular synth way. That was like so cool.
The instruments like slowly shifting in their hand from a bow to a keyboard,
What movie was that we did that on?
That was a demo for just that zombie movie.
That was awesome.
The firefighter zombie movie.
Yeah,
so they wanted the fire siren to come out of the strings.
Sounds so good, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So what would you recommend, like an orchestral composer? Let's say you're an orchestral composer. Would you recommend that they have some experience with synths? Like, I know they're good with the orchestra, but should they have that in their toolbox?
Yeah. I think that's a good question. Definitely. I think that in this day and age, if all you are is an orchestral composer, you're going to get like 1/100th of the gigs. So, being a film composer or a narrative composer, TV, whatever the drama is, if you're conveying psychology with your music and supporting story, you've got to be able to do that with sound, not just the orchestra. The orchestra was there. You were born into a world where the orchestra was there, and so therefore that's how you think you have to learn how to express yourself. But really, that's just a box. That's the orchestra. And even the world we live in now and the tools we have in now, that's another box. So you gotta think open-minded, and like Herbie Hancock told me once, not just in a bigger box.
Right.
You got to think outside the box, but not just in a bigger box, he said. But you have to have a totally open mind and really understand what you're doing at a fundamental level so you can apply it to whatever, you might even wind up inventing something, which would be the way to go, So I think, absolutely, you should be versed in all manners of sound expression at the current moment, and you should be learning whatever is the cutting edge of the trending, in technologies. And it wouldn't hurt if you either had some friends that you talk to regularly about new concepts that are coming in, or if you participated in some of those projects, so that you can possibly be part of the next wave of what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think it goes the other way too. If you're a synth main composer, you come in from maybe a rock or pop background, you need to learn the orchestra, because what is orchestration but knowing how to handle a variety of different sounds all towards one musical vision, right? And there's this box as well in the synth world where there's the groove and the harmony and the melody and the bass line, these very static assigned roles that you also need to break out of. And orchestration teaches you that there's a dance, that you can go in and out, that functions can change, that instruments can perform different functions, and then some, there are even more functions than just, those ones I listed.
Right, and to add to what you were saying, it's acoustic principles.
Yeah.
We're human beings. We have ears, and these ears are not perfect. The AI, when we get to that level and the AI starts making music, it's going to not be limited to about 20 kilohertz. It's going to go into the megahertz range. We're not even going to be able to hear it. but they're going to be enjoying it. And also, since the AI can process so fast, what they're going to find beautiful is going to be way beyond the processing power of our own brains. So my point is,
it's a fun thought. 10,000 beats per minute.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be like, to us, we won't be able to appreciate it, but it will be more advanced. That's for sure. And we'll be just ants to the AI, in our little ant colony. But my point is that the human ear, has its own, acoustic world properties. It runs on a Brown curve. You have pink wave, you have brown wave, you have white noise. So it has a brown noise curve to it, which is like a pink noise, and because of that, if you were to play a high sound at an equal level as a low sound, because our ears go down on the high end, if we could hear that normally, it would be ridiculous. It would hurt it. Everything would sound the other way. It would sound lopsided.
Right.
So our ears, number one, they do sort of defy physics, except for the fact that on our planet and the way our atmospheric pressures are, sound travels in such a way and resonates and has sympathetic frequencies with the objects in our molecules in our world, and such that our pink noise curve of our ear kind of matches that. So to us, we hear everything nice and crystal clear, but actually it's not that way. We're tuned that way. We're tuned that way. And so our instruments that we build are tuned that way. The orchestra is tuned that way. So there's a mechanics there that you want to learn of the acoustic principles. And at this point, we have a pretty good guide from Rimsky-Korsakov's Principles of Orchestration. Gets you about 85% in the zone. Then from there, learn acoustics, learn the physics of audio, practice engineering, understand, audio, and you'll get another 5 or 10% out of that.
Right.
And then just give it 10 or 20 years to, get yourself a full comprehensive kind of mastery of what acoustics is. Then you can now do that with synths, and you can make human-pleasing sound with synths. It's not going to sound good if it's upside down, or flat. It's got to be on that human curve. Otherwise, a few nerds will enjoy it, but not the general population.
I think it's interesting. You said, that's how we hear and we're attuned. And I think within that we is not just the composer, but the audience. We take into effect, obviously we're writing for humans, so the music that we write is going to be pleasing and attuned to the human ear. But I guess that's just a general principle, even above acoustics, is, you need to know your audience, and you need to ultimately write for them.
Yeah. Now I have a question from Josh Cook about what kind of chair do we recommend for sitting in your studio for long hours on end. A couple of things I can say about that right away. About 2 years ago, I had a medical scare, where because during a long broadcast like one of these, I was sitting the whole time in a bad chair. I noticed the next day a pain in my left leg down by the calf, and went in to have it looked at. And then they did like a CAT scan kind of thing. No, it was a ultrasound. It turned out that I had an emergency blood clot. I had an emergency blood clot in my leg and had to go to the hospital right away to get it checked out. Turned out that I was able to handle it with medicine, but blood clots, if you look it up, is pretty scary.
Yes, you want to avoid all of that with a chair.
And it was not normal for someone of my age, of our age, to have a blood clot. It's something that happens in your 60s, and you start watching out for that, So, it was an example of the problem was the chair that I was in, the whole seat of the chair was so kind of grandiose that it stuck out enough that it put a lot of pressure on the back of my upper leg, the upper half of the leg. And when it does that, it squishes the vein, the artery, I guess you call it, that's going down to the rest of the foot. And that causes your foot to lack blood and just causes those problems. Yeah. So what they recommend is that you use a chair that has something called a waterfall lip. So that it kind of goes down. And on top of that, I would recommend that you find one where the waterfall lip is short and not way off onto your knees and calf.
I've seen some that waterfall with a hard plastic edge on the front too, and you want to avoid that because it's just falling into the rocks.
That's not going to work. Yeah, I mean, because then you're just hitting it again. Yeah. So a great example. The best example obviously is the Herman Miller Aeron chair, which I have on the screen there. And I think you can get them for $500. You might even be able to get them used and pre-owned for cheaper. They do go into the $800 to $1,500 range, but you're going to use it for 10 years.
Oh yeah.
So is it worth $10 a month to have a $1,500 chair? Yeah, I think so.
I also recommend mesh.
Okay.
That chair's mesh. I recommend because it breathes better.
Yeah.
And it's just easier to clean.
Yeah.
You don't want this big leathery chair holding you down. The other thing I would recommend is measuring the distance from your elbows when you're sitting upright in a resting position, from your elbows down to the actual surface level of the chair. And you need to make sure that the armrests for your chair can go down low enough. Because I've sat in chairs where the armrests don't go low enough, and I end up scrunching my shoulders, and that actually becomes a problem. I had constant neck pain until I realized I needed a chair that had the adjustable
so
armrest.
Much goes into this. A chair is it's very important.
So you want from the down to your elbow, the chair needs to rest, and then from your elbow and your forearm over to your keyboard, that should all be ergonomically designed so that, that's your primary surface of interaction with your computer is your keyboard and your mouse.
Right.
Obviously, like musical keyboard, MIDI keyboard. So, you don't want it too high, hurt your wrist, too low, bend your wrist out of shape, and you don't want your shoulders or your elbows to be too high, or else you're going to have persistent neck pain.
Right. And, along that, when they teach you in piano, you got to keep your elbow should really be above your wrist as far as level, otherwise you can get carpal tunnel, And then another good tip is to take a break if you can do it every 30 minutes, stand up every 30 minutes, but I do it every hour, before I learned that you can die from sitting for long periods of time. I didn't get up for 4-6 hours. So that's really dangerous. I think they're saying that like sitting at a computer for long periods of time is like the new smoking. It's incredibly, incredibly bad for your heart, for you. It's just dangerous. You need to get up every hour. You should take like a 5-minute little walk around, get your body circulating again. It's
just that aspect of film scoring that's not very flashy or extravagant, so people don't want to think about it, right? They want the hot gear. They want to keep themselves, functioning properly.
Yeah, totally.
So it shouldn't be the last thing you think about, Yeah. So you think about you, and then how you interact with your equipment, and kind of go in that direction. Like, keep it working, and then when you get to the equipment end, start thinking about that.
You should build from the foundation up: sleep, diet, fitness, and now career.
Well, first your mind.
Yeah.
You've got to have something to write and something to think about. Yeah. And then, of course, career. Yeah.
And that doesn't include Pringles, Dallas. So now somebody asked us, let's see. Oh, wow. Josh Cook says that he just researched the Aeron, and it has a 12-year warranty.
Wow.
That puts it at a guaranteed no more than $12 a month. I just did the math.
Perfect. That's great.
I'm getting one. That's it. I'm sold.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then let's see. Preston, hey, says your chair needs lumbar support and ventilation.
Yeah, that's the mesh, and then keep you sitting up straight.
Yeah.
We don't want the I don't know what they call it. It's like the composer hunch, where you're leaning forward, and it's actually because the muscles have lost strength, and you start hunching, and then your body starts getting used to it.
Right. Scott Mueller says my keyboard seems high, but the thing is, what do you do most? Are you using your mouse and your typing keyboard? Or are you using your piano keyboard most? I mean, I don't know about you, but actually, I'm a film composer. I do communicate with my keyboard, but my piano keyboard. But I don't really do all my computer work with my piano keyboard. And 99% of this is perspiration, so it's, doing the hard work there. And it's 1% inspiration, piano keyboard. So I think that this is a better setup, like Hans has his under his desk. Huh. And that's cool. You can work that way. But I think, I have absolutely no wrist strain. And I'm 43. And that's because since I was 6 years old, I was trained in piano to have my hands at, elbows above the wrist. And I've taken care of that the whole time. And I've got no problems with my wrist. I know other people who put those things on their hands because maybe they've got a little pain.
That, yeah.
Well, that can help you as well. Yeah.
Yeah. With the mouse, you have to be careful. You got to move with your elbows, not with your wrist, or else you will get carpal tunnel.
It would be cool if they designed a piano keyboard that had all the letters of the alphabet too, so that you could actually do away with your your typing keyboard.
Just put an Enigma machine on top, and then cycle through the codex. And suddenly now, Chopin is the Universal Declaration of Rights or something.
That's great. Now somebody else, asked way up there, Julian on Periscope, Julian Music Productions, asked, what do you have any recommendations on how to get involved with projects larger than short films? Well, that's a pretty deep question. I see many levels to it.
That's like the heart of the career.
Yeah, you're asking a question kind of about how to get work. Recommend you do check out the course How to Get Scoring Gigs over at filmscoring.academy. Because basically the techniques in that 8-hour presentation that you'll find in there would apply to both the short films and the larger films and TV and from any region in the world. And I think because of that, you'll see that the techniques used and the systems used in order to obtain those gigs really apply to large films just as equally as short films. And I do talk about how in that course, how you can kind of break through those different levels from student shorts to, is there such a thing as a professional short? Barely. I guess they win Academy Awards, but
they're festival pieces.
Festival
really.
Pieces, yeah.
That's how I see them.
But yeah, and how you can ladder up, And so check out that course. There's also a really good one there about how to create outstanding demo reels, and it'll blow your mind because you've probably been thinking about demo reels wrong all this time, and it'll spin your head around and make you think about demo reels in a new way that'll get you more work.
Yeah. Now this is all talking about the career of a composer. We actually had a question from Andreas Haberlin about an arranger and orchestrator, which is also another side of the film industry. He was just asking, what are some resources for learning to orchestrate the human voice? I assume, instead of the cat voice or the artificial intelligence voice.
Yeah.
But, yeah, well, basic, I think, all of Western music started from the human voice. So going back to the roots of, early counterpoint, early polyphony, those kinds of things will give you a sense of how the human voice navigates pitch and rhythm and harmony, right? Because before they had instruments, they were singing, and the musical form arose from the fact that they were singing, and then instruments became some colorful decoration, but the music was the singing, right? And so it's always been the singing. Some specific things, I think just for arranging in general, even if not just human voices, is the Don Sebesky book from like 1973, and this was the high point for, music, I guess, like music production houses. He was working on like jazz gigs, he was doing arrangements, he was doing film scores, commercials, all out of one. Yep, that's the one, the gray one with the circle disc on the front. Yep, I have the comb bound version. It's about $40 or $50.
Yeah, that's right.
$41. Yeah, the Contemporary Arranger by Don Sebesky. Fantastic book. So it takes you through arranging and orchestrating through the eyes of a Hollywood composer, right? And not just Hollywood film composer, but really the heart of Hollywood, which is the jazz arranger working for the classical, European immigrant. That was kind of the clash of Hollywood in the early days of film. And so he has that perfect combination of what makes the Hollywood sound what it is, and that book is the trick to get to it all.
Absolutely.
So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah. And some of the other great arrangers. What are some great books for that in the past?
Oh,
Sammy Nestico.
Yeah, Sammy Nestico. What's his name? Starts with an R. He does, I think, Rayburn Wright, that's what it is.
Okay.
He has a jazz arranger's book. I think any jazz arranging book is great, because it's going to teach you the one concept that we have from jazz music that is not represented in classical music, precisely because classical music comes from the vocal side, whereas jazz music comes from the instrumental and the rhythmic side, and that is the thickened line, where multiple voices sing variations on the same line in some form of harmony to support a larger harmonic texture, but what is still a single line. So sax solis, right, big band voicings, trumpet solis, tooties, everybody playing in basically parallel motion, but with obviously the variations that you need from that style. So that's always the missing piece for the classical side, is the concept of the thickened line. That you can write a melody line harmonized and still have it come out and be interpreted as a melodic line.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Don Sebesky. I would also recommend, if you want to learn thickened line, the it's like a 700-page textbook ranging for the jazz ensemble.
Wow.
I'm trying to remember his name. He does. He used to work for the military, like all great jazz arrangers, and if you play in any jazz ensemble, you've probably played his charts. What?
And he has a book as well?
He's got a book. It's about 700 pages, the most comprehensive jazz arranging book I've ever seen.
Wow. Well, if you can't remember it now, then we'll post it as a link down below.
We'll post it for sure.
Uh-huh.
It's a great book. Literally just go through it and all the time,
I would say one last thing from a classical thing that you could check out is some of the Bach chorales, where they have the bass, the tenor, the soprano, and the alto, and you could see kind of good voice leading in those. So that's
absolutely
an awesome book to just check out.
Oh yeah.
He has 400 of those little chorales. So.
Yeah, there's like little ditties.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, actually, that reminds me. There's a YouTube channel. It's the early music channel. I don't know specifically the name, but early music. And they talk about the different types of early music cadences. That would be really interesting to learn human voices. You get the tenoret son, the basit son, and the cantit son cadences, and how those combine. And those move into, I guess, cadential harmonic motion in general, but specifically designed for human voices so that they can cadence. And, the restrictions on who's allowed to move really comes from what an individual singer can hear in a group. So, yeah, totally check that out. Early music cadences, Bach chorales.
And how about Nelson Riddle?
Nelson Riddle? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've heard that name, Nelson Riddle.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, really good one.
Yeah.
Check out Nelson Riddle.
So I'll have to check that one out. Okay, so we've been talking like synths and books and, I was wondering, like, what's one thing all of us can do, like just one simple thing, like today or tomorrow, that you can do to improve our studios? Like, for example, building studio monitor stands, because I see people with their monitors right on the table. We have that $6 beginner recipe to build studio monitor stands, something like that. Just
sure.
Improve the studio right away.
Yeah. We'd have to post like a link to that particular method, but like for less than $7, you can grab like these little IKEA felt stickers for like $1 from IKEA, and then little concrete blocks.
Yeah, I think they're called
half blocks, cinder blocks from like Home Depot.
Like 50 cents
for like
a piece.
Yeah, $1 50 cents. Yeah. And is that it? I think. And then at that point, you just put the stickers on the tops and bottoms of the block.
Yeah.
Put your speaker on that. Put the block on your desk, and it creates a great isolated speaker stand.
Yeah, and it gets your speakers up properly.
Yeah.
It's so strange seeing tweeters down here. At your shoulder height.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's perfect. Something cheap like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that might be just about all we have for this week. Let's save some more for next week.
Yeah.
And thank you everybody for coming and enjoying the feed, and let us know what your favorite parts of the show today was down in the comments below. And if you have questions for us for next week, drop them down there and we'll be sure to answer. And next week I'll be at the NAMM show. So if you're going to NAMM, I hope to see you there. And great. Well,
awesome.
All right.
Thank you for tuning in, everyone.
Take
Bye-bye
care.
now.
All right.